Hello. Thanks for tuning into the show that takes you around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Usoa, Channels Television here in Abuja. I'm joined by Vincent Makori from Voice of America in Washington.
Thanks, I'm Vincent Makori at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain also in Abuja brings you that story.
The president has launched the National Counter-Terrorism Center, a facility he declares will serve as his major infrastructural legacy to the incoming administration to effectively coordinate national security and counter-terrorism efforts. President Buhari made the declaration during the inauguration of two state-of-the-art facilities, including the new office of the National Security Advisor in Abuja, as part of efforts to address the protracted challenge of insecurity, particularly terrorism and violent extremism. Speaking at the inauguration of the two world-class facilities, the president noted that his administration has checkmated agitators in the southeast and to a lesser extent in the southwest.
Thank you very much. On the 21st of March this year,
in this room are distinguished personalities, the military, police, paramilitary, and members from other forces. They have come to launch the Counter-Terror Center. President Muhammadu Buhari believes the launch of the center shows the commitment of his administration to put an end to insecurity across the country.
These two world-class state-of-the-art facilities will optimize our efforts at addressing the newly evolving security challenges in our environment, especially terrorism and violent extremism. The secure and high-tech nature of these offices are designed to enhance our strategic response to a broad range of current and emerging security concerns. This is because we live in an interconnected world and therefore must be able to face and respond to both domestic and global security challenges. Apart from degraded threat of terrorism in the northeast, the government has also curbed a series of armed banditry and kidnapping cases in the northwest and north central zones, which emerged as a result of the scattering of Boko Haram in the northeast and the implosion of Libya in the Maghreb.
Nigeria has battled with terrorism for some time now, with insurgency at the center. The launch of the Terrorism Center will perhaps stem the tide of terrorism in the country.
Mr. Kingsley Uzoma, a security consultant, joins us now on Africa 54. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, good morning.
All right. Terrorism and violent extremism have been a security challenge in Nigeria for over 10 years. With the launch of the National Counter-Terrorism Center by the president, are you confident we can coordinate our military and paramilitary officers towards achieving a secure country?
Yes, I commend the efforts of the president, especially looking at the historical analysis of terrorism and extremism here in Nigeria. You will recall that sometime in 1990 was the first time we embraced through the police anti-terrorism squad. They call 8 years. That was when we acknowledged that as a nation, that yet there is a proliferation of terrorism activities. And in 2007, that also changed under the police to counter-terrorism, which also shows that, yes, the terrorism has come. Then we now have the effort, the tactics need to change in terms of combating it. So in the last 10 years, we've encountered the rising extremism, terrorism, and banditry, of which I recall in 2016, 2019, 2021, and 2022 as well. The Office of the National Security Advisor has been proactive in terms of making sure, reviewing the counter-terrorism strategy of the nations to make sure that we can be steps ahead of these criminal elements and what have you. So don't also forget there is a global trend, and being a nation with a vast porous border. So you really need to take adequate steps. But one other thing is the fact that it's coming a bit somehow late, in the sense that is when the administration is actually going out. I think this would have done much more earlier than now.
So are there similarities between the new National Counter-Terrorism Center and the Military Command Center?
There are similarities, but the National Counter-Terrorism Center seems to be steps ahead, in the sense that it coordinates, not only advise the president, is not restricted to the military, but rather it is a common ground put for all security agencies, actors to supply intelligence, process intelligence, and to make sure that this intelligence are acted upon. Because before now, we've been complaining of maybe the rivalry among interagency collaboration, whereby certain security agencies find it difficult to share intelligence with their sister security agencies. But with this common pool, it makes it much more easier to coordinate, process information, and be able to respond tactically and beyond that. But one problem we also need to address is to make sure that what I call the political mumbo jumbo that gives the foundation of erection of some of these devices and structures, to make sure that it doesn't fall as more of rhetorics. So we have to go beyond that to make sure that they are very active and live up to its expectations.
In terms of giving us the best result, should this center be coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor or by another office? If so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, before now, we've been thinking of maybe a replica of what they have in the US as Department of the Homeland Security, given the fact that maybe the Office of the National Security Advisor, the NSA himself, coordinates and advises the government. But it goes to say that all security actors and agencies all have offices at the NSA. So it's easier coordinated at the NSA than having its platform in isolation across all the military and other security agencies. Yes, it's well situated, but certain things to also need to be considered to make sure that the essence of its creation and sustainability goes beyond that, because it goes to say there is more of an elaborate or broadened job of the NSA, given the changing political and security dynamics.
All right then, Mr. Kingsley Uzoma, security consultant, thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.
Thanks for having me.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 at viewingafrica.com. After the break, 3D printed homes in South Africa with the ability to build a house in one day. The University of Johannesburg partners with government to build low-cost housing in Johannesburg. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. The University of Johannesburg has launched a 3D printing technique that can build a house in one day. The university is working on a government pilot project to build low-cost homes in South Africa, which has a severe housing shortage. For VOA, Zahir Kasim reports from Johannesburg.
Since South Africa's first democratic election in 1994, many here have been waiting to have their own homes. With a backlog of more than 2.5 million houses, the government has partnered with the University of Johannesburg on a pilot program to create low-cost 3D printed homes. This is one such home. It was erected in only 8 hours and within the government's budget of $13,000. But officials say these printed homes offer something more than most traditional homes here.
The current houses are typically box match. And what are we saying? We are saying it is time for people to be able to choose what they want. Provides in a typical development different types of houses, different typologies of those houses, customizing houses for the people.
Such as houses that can withstand floods, like the ones that swept through parts of South Africa in the past year. The heavy rainfall left thousands homeless. The program's technical lead, Refiwe Lediga, says these 3D houses are strong and should last longer than traditional ones.
We deliberately took a decision to print this house outdoors and not in the lab or in a warehouse. And the reason why we did that is to see how it responds to normal weather patterns, whether it's raining or hailing and so forth. And what we've seen now is that there have been minimal cracks on the system and there's been no structural failure. So it's a strong structure and from what we've seen at this stage, it should behave as normal as, and even longer than normal housing, traditional housing, yeah.
3D homes are also being manufactured in Kilifi County, Kenya, by the company called 14 Trees. Managing Director Francois Perrault predicts new technology will be a major part of the construction industry in the next decade.
Clearly, construction 3D printing and more broadly, construction automation is coming, and that will become a mainstream movement in the months to come.
The team at the University of Johannesburg will now continue the project in KwaZulu-Natal, where it is expected to build 5 to 10 houses within the next 3 months. Zahir Kassim for VOA News, Johannesburg.
In a makeshift courtroom in the eastern Congolese village of Kamanyola, a colonel whom a judge had just been ordered be dishonorably discharged from the army and sentenced to 7 years in prison for raping a 14-year-old girl is stripped of his epaulets. The February 27 to March 9 trial by a mobile military court offered a rare chance of justice for rape in conflict-hit Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where an estimated 40% of women have experienced sexual violence in some form, according to a 2010 study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. During the trial, several victims and one victim's father offered their testimonies in specially designed hoods that obscured their faces, an indicator of the fear of stigma that stops many from coming forward.
I don't have any more friends. Every time I find a friend, they're told that I am the reason for the colonel's arrest. I wasn't the reason. It was he who hurt me, and then he had my parents arrested.
The father of the victim at the Kamanyola trial, who spoke on condition of anonymity, said he just wanted justice for his daughter.
There is no need for compensation. I need to see this case come to an end, as the law says. I don't ask for anything. I won't negotiate.
Monsieur le Premier Président, bon, je suis désolé que la victime soit...
The victim's lawyer, Armand Muhima, is pleased because he feels the proceedings have sent a message.
The goal, as I said before, is to educate the population to know that the law is there for everyone. No one is above the law, whether they are civilians or soldiers, whether they are the perpetrators of sexual violence. Justice is there to repress these behavior.
Muhima works for the Panzi Foundation, an organization set up by Nobel Prize-winning gynecologist Denis Mukwege, who campaigns to help the hundreds of women raped in eastern Congo since the region plunged into conflict in the 1990s. In 2022, 314 people in Congo, including 71 soldiers and 143 members of armed groups, were convicted of offenses relating to human rights violations and abuses such as sexual violence, according to UNJHRO, which supported 12 missions by military courts.
In 2021, a pilot program called the Ghetto Project was started in Togo's capital of Lomé to help impoverished young people. The goal is for young residents to get out of poor urban areas, find work, and stay away from drugs. Assignon looks at how the project is going on, narrated by Michelle Joseph.
Julien and some of his friends are in a slum in Togo's capital city of Lomé, trying to meet and educate the young people who live here. Julien has lived in this impoverished area called Commune Gulf 1 for over a year, but he has stayed away from the drugs that he says are rampant here. Others haven't been so lucky.
I didn't have any support or job, and I ended up here, so I smoke.
A few months ago, Julien took advantage of a pilot program to help young people in poor urban areas. In this center, Julien and others received training to help them find a job.
We teach them craft, particularly macrame and the weaving of pico beds, nylon bags, everything that can be woven by hand with threads. It's not just craft, we also provide them with psychological support.
Over the past 6 months, the program has helped train around 20 young people and taught residents about the harmful effects of drugs.
The results are conclusive since the 20 people we have mobilized are still following the training and ready to move out of here.
The project helped me a lot. It made me have something in hand if I don't have money. And I know that I can work and earn money.
Officials say, so far, results of the reintegration project suggest it's a model that can work here and be replicated in cities around the country. For Assignon in Lomé, Togo, Michelle Joseph, VOA News.
A group of activists have been walking from Mali to Burkina Faso in a bid to promote states federation. The group is using the walk as a means to call on their governments to move towards federation between both countries. They want the states to harmonize the two Western African states, pushing for stronger armies, security policies, and developmental strategies.
A small group of activists are walking from Mali's capital Bamako to Burkina Faso's capital Ouagadougou to express their support for a federation between the two West African states. Holding the flags of both countries and the African Union, the group of about a dozen men and women walked single file this weekend on the side of a road surrounded by scrubland near Yaoundé in western Burkina Faso. There were placards with the distance they plan to cover, 862 kilometers or about 536 miles. They left Bamako on February 27th.
Today, we want to push our governments, our institutions, and our people to move toward a federation, because we believe that only a federation can be the global and definitive solution for Africa.
The Prime Ministers of Mali and Burkina Faso held a joint press conference last month where they said they would examine the idea of creating a federation.
On the federation which our two heads of state hold dearly. We have decided to work very closely on this between now and the holding of a mixed commission in Burkina Faso. We understand there's already been a commission specifically set up at the foreign ministry level to address this question.
The two countries share a long border and face similar challenges. They are both ruled by military juntas which ousted their democratic government in the last 2 years, largely out of frustration at worsening insecurity as Islamist militants step up attacks.
William Padilla Brown is a self-taught citizen scientist and mycologist. His passion for mushrooms is leading to new discoveries as he teaches others and works to build a healthier, more sustainable world. VOA's Aaron Feder brings us the story.
Oh, dude, that's just a cluster of like mycelium and rock and dirt. That's not even mushroom at the bottom. I could literally do this for the rest of my life. Just hang out on the woods, sitting on the ground, looking at mushrooms with my homies. Don't get much better than that. If you could figure out how to look at mushrooms with for the rest of your life with your homies, you won. I grew up in the cities, and my parents didn't really have much of a connection with nature. I only knew the forest and I only knew trees from the side of the car while we were driving, and it was usually just a blur. Mushrooms first came on my radar in high school, I think, because a lot of kids were trying them. It was a thing that was just going around. I started really exploring it. I was like, this is where there's potential for me here in rural Pennsylvania, where everything else is illegal that I'm interested in. I can do something that is okay and acceptable, and something that nobody else is doing. There was nobody in like a 60-mile radius growing any mushrooms. There was nobody that I could go learn from to go about growing mushrooms. Like, nobody can teach me about mushrooms, but if I started doing this, somebody will pay me to learn about mushrooms. I dropped out of high school. That was like probably one of the craziest things for my mom, because she's like coming from such an academic background and wanted me to go to college and all this kind of stuff. But I ensured her that I didn't want to stop learning. Fungi can be used for medicine, fungi can be used for materials, fungi can be used for remediating soils, cleaning air, creating alternative materials, incredibly valuable mushrooms, incredibly delicious mushrooms, and all sorts of incredibly medicinal mushrooms, from the cordyceps to the reishi. Mushrooms really give you kind of superpowers. Like, every single different mushroom has some ability associated with it. Every single mushroom has some essence associated with it, you know, from being able to boost your immune system, to boost your brain function, to, you know, make your heart stronger, or be able to get more oxygen into your body. I find it really incredible to be able to associate with these different things in different ways that, you know, may make me a better person, or if not, you know, bring me closer to understanding more about nature. I find them all to be like little keys, or little riddles, or little clues into a bigger mystery that is the life that we're experiencing. I didn't believe that magic existed in the world anymore, and following mushrooms connected me to nature, and in learning about the natural aspects of myself and the natural aspects of this world and the natural patterns helped me to realize that magic never went anywhere.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. ChannelsTV.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Usor. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.